Varvara Mikhailovna, would you like to accompany Dad to the neighboring city for some shopping today? The daughter offered with a joyful sparkle in her brown eyes. Finally, this news penetrated her father's busy mind, and he decided to dedicate his precious time. Of course, Dad, I'll get ready then, Mikhail lovingly replied, watching his daughter hurry to get dressed without wasting any time. His business didn't allow him to spend much time with Varvara, more often than he would have liked. But when he did, Mikhail made sure that the day off remained forever in the girl's memory. They had a blast, laughing together with Varia. Mikhail went on thrilling rides until his pulse raced, delighted his daughter with boat rides, and let entertainers draw themselves as new pirates or anyone they wished. People glanced at this cheerful duo and envied them. The girl is lucky to have such a fun grandpa, they thought. Mikhail didn't take offense. What could he do if he became a father very late in life? Before that, he was a veteran of 2 Chechen wars, a retired VDV Major, and now a respected businessman, Mikhail Matveevich, by everyone. He served his homeland faithfully, almost never leaving hotspots. But Nastya didn't want to have children with him. She was afraid of leaving them as orphans. Mikhail met her before the army when he was just a young guy. He saw the girl at a dance and fell head over heels, but she didn't even pay attention to him. The head of the factory workshop was against their relationship, considering Mikhail a yesterday's schoolboy. Misha's parents were simple people. His father worked at the same factory, and his mother was a cleaner. Compared to them, everyone around fawned over men who were nothing without their status. But Mikhail's persistence paid off, and he managed to convince the beauty to marry him. The father was happy, although there was no escaping love. Then they took Misha into the army, and Zhana stayed waiting for housing under her father's roof. After completing his mandatory service, Mikhail Matveevich started a small business. He opened a few small shops in his hometown. Fellow soldiers helped with money, and the business gradually took off. Glazov didn't have millions, but it was enough for bread and butter. Life seemed to have settled down, but Major Timela felt a sense of loneliness and unsettled domesticity. In his company, there was one kind woman named Polina. She was just as lonely and had gone through failed relationships with alcoholic men. Mikhail often looked at the attractive and calm Polina and marveled at how spoiled men were nowadays. Such a gem to exchange for alcohol. At first, Glazov didn't dare to get closer to her, only maintaining a professional relationship, and he was 15 years older than Polina. But a woman is a woman, and Mikhail felt that he had feelings for her. Polina started talking to him just like with a good friend. "Shall we go to a cafe?" Glazov was delighted, booked a table at a restaurant, and spent the whole evening wooing Polina. True, they couldn't dance. His limp got in the way. He didn't want to walk around, so he blurted out on the way out, "Marry me if you're not afraid that I'll die before you." She looked at him, handsome, fit in his military attire, not having lost his charm, and asked sarcastically, "Why, Misha, did they plan to take him to the other world before you? Or maybe I'll go before you? Shame on you." Polina ardently began to give Vera care and love, and Mikhail did not lag behind. It turned out that they had an abundance of these qualities. The girl grew up, developed, and was both clever and mischievous. Glazov reminisced about those years as the best in his life. Misfortune struck Mikhail suddenly. On a calm winter day, Polina disappeared. She went on an important business meeting for the company and never returned. After some time, investigators found her car in the river, but her body was not found. The car had skidded on the slippery road and was thrown off the bridge, presumably. Polina must have tried to escape, but the underwater current carried her so far away that there seemed to be no possibility of finding her. The fact that she was no longer in this world became a terrifying reality, not a mere suspicion. Rescuers traveled for miles, helplessly shaking their heads. There was no chance of rescue. Unless a miracle happened, or unless it was all deliberately orchestrated by Polina. Simultaneously with his wife's disappearance, the managing director, Anton Tregubov, also went missing. Quite a character. Mikhail couldn't stand him, an intriguer, a cunning fellow. This charming creature with darting eyes annoyed him, and Polina, the accountant, had long been asking to fire Tregubov, but Mikhail didn't hurry. Anton was remarkably skilled at negotiating with banks for loans, and now he vanished, taking with him a huge sum of cash from the office. Rumors spread, and colleagues understood everything without any comments. Mikhail believed and disbelieved. He managed the funeral arrangements somehow, placed a blouse in the coffin, and then watched for a long time as the gravediggers covered it with frozen soil. Glazov heard the dull thud on the coffin lid and trembled. It felt as if his heart had been ripped out of his chest. It was so painful and frightening. Varenka cried for a whole year, calling for her mom, while Mikhail, exhausted, wandered through the empty house, wandered into his daughter's room, hugged her tightly, and sang lullabies. He believed, he despaired, and he silently wept. And in his mind, the thought drilled, how could this be? Polina hated Tregubov so much. Money was not an issue. He wanted to know the truth, and at the same time, he didn't want to know anything. Unnoticed, 5 years flew by. Mikhail grew accustomed to living alone, and Vera grew up under the supervision of the housekeeper Klavdia Stepanovna, a wise elderly woman. She grumbled and scolded at times, but she managed the household efficiently. She took care of Vera as if she were a kind grandmother. Vara was a peculiar creature. Glazov traveled for business, disappearing for weeks in other cities. The business grew and demanded attention. The accident, the tear-room, Vera missed her father. Mikhail decided to take her with him. There was a business trip to a neighboring city, a famous tourist center. The girl jumped with joy. They quickly packed and set off. Vera enthusiastically set up the tents and chattered endlessly. And indeed, the places were extraordinary. An ancient monastery and white churches, a cathedral, and the walls of a 1,000-year-old fortress. Everything captured Vera's attention. Glazov drove at a leisurely pace, allowing his daughter to enjoy the sweetness of the old city's beauty. And suddenly she screamed desperately, "Mom, Dad, stop! Mom is there." Mikhail hit the brakes. "What? Where?" "There, at the bus stop," Vera shouted. The man turned around and pulled up to the bus shelter. A nun was sitting on the bench, her hands folded meekly on her knees. "Stay in the car, Vera," he said quietly. Mikhail got out of the car, observed closely, and was stunned. It was Polina. He squatted down in front of the woman. "Polishka, don't you recognize me? By my little leg?" She looked at Mikhail with astonishment. "And you? Perhaps you've mistaken me. I am not this Vera." Breaking her father's order, she jumped out of the car and threw herself into the nun's arms. Mommy, you're alive. How I missed you." The woman's face brightened, and her arms embraced the girl. The nun smiled and cried, but they were tears of recognition, tears of joy. She remembered everything. "My dear, good one, you're alive and well. Veryusha, how you've grown, oh Lord. You're so cute." They drove to the monastery together. "There's a small hotel there. We need to calm down. We'll say goodbye to Mother Euphrosyne." In a small house near the monastery, it was quiet and cool. 4 people sat in the room. Mikhail, Vera, the frail elderly woman, Polina's mother, and Euphrosyne, the abbess of the house of God. Polina told her everything. "According to God's will, if your relatives find you, I dare not keep you. Holy Dima is your family name. Worldly life is written for the daughter of a mother. We'll pray for you, sisters, day and night. Euphrosyne's voice was gentle and pleasant, like a babbling brook. She saved me from the death caused by herbs, Polina confessed, bowing to the elderly woman. 5 years ago, Polina suspected Tregubov of embezzling money from the company's records. The numbers didn't add up, and the accountant began to investigate the cause of the discrepancy. All the threads led to Anton's activities. Polina realized that Tregubov had been embezzling successfully for a long time, and she cornered him with evidence of his fraudulent activities. Fearing imminent retribution, Anton promised to return all the money he had hidden in a cottage outside the city. Polina Andreevna, I beg you, without witnesses, I implore you, he convinced her to go with him. He was skilled at persuasion, and Polina would have been suspicious, but she seemed to have lost her mind and went out of town. And just before the bridge, Anton asked Polina to stop the car. He felt dizzy and then a blow to the head and complete darkness. Tell me who would believe this story. I probably was nervous, so I forgot to lock the door, said Euphrosyne. I don't remember how I got out, but it was winter, and the ice hadn't formed properly yet. I found myself near the bridge. There was a large ice floe, and I managed to throw myself onto the shore, right under the support pillar. Thank God, at that time I was walking out of the village onto the road to catch a ride. There's a shelter in the village where I accompanied humanitarian aid, and our minibus was on the way back. And I went for help and nets. I saw someone lying under the bridge. That's how it happened, as if the Lord directed me, Euphrosyne narrated. The abbess returned to the driver, and he, a strong man, pulled the injured woman onto the road. They gave Polina a ride to the hospital, where doctors diagnosed her with amnesia caused by a severe blow. The monks not only visited the patient, but also brought her treats, and then Euphrosyne took her to her monastery. That's how I lived. I was well here, but my heart ached every day, whispered Polina, with tears in her eyes, showcasing her motherly heart. The fortune teller answered Euphrosyne's unspoken question. I said goodbye to the abbess and the other nuns. Mother blessed the three of us one last time. Live well and never separate in sorrow and joy. Stay together, the old woman said, crossing Polina, Mikhail, and their Vara. The Glazov family returned to their hometown and felt incredibly happy. Angel, who had been with them all along, remained living with the family, becoming an integral part of their lives. Tregubov was declared wanted, and he was quickly found and arrested on a beach at one of the Black Sea resorts. Anton had accumulated a significant sum of money, which of course led him there. A remarkable young employee, honest and incorruptible, had long since taken his place. Vera entered the 5th grade, where she continued to maintain her status as an excellent student. Mikhail and Polina adopted 2 more children, twin brothers. Now in their big house, every day was filled with joyful chaos created by their noisy and mischievous children. They had become a big family. If you enjoyed the story, please support me with a thumbs up. And to stay updated on new and interesting stories, click the bell icon when subscribing. Wishing you all the best.